Okay, folks, this is 2/9 of 2016, and what we have for you here is the 4 o'clock meeting of the LCAP presentation to the Rowland Unified School District School Board. And this is a segmented one, just not to have the full enchilada, but there's enough here to keep you going to find out what's going on. Now, the irony is that we're all victims of LCAP. Supposedly, we have educational professionals who are supposed to be competent, qualified, or qualified and competent to produce an education platform to meet the needs present and future for the educational process, whether it be college preparatory or in a career, depending on what you select. And they have those career pathways. Okay, and so what it amounts to is they have this local control funding formula, and if you want to get the money and so forth, and the state as well as others want to see that the money's properly spent, and they want to get it says local control. Well, we want to get some input from the locals. Yes, the irony is that it has been shown that the outcome of the LCAP findings and processes are, for all intents and purposes, that which would happen without this inclusion of community participants of various sundry kind of persons who know so little about the education platform, but there's always that chance that somebody will come up with some boom that will make a huge difference. But to that point, it really doesn't matter. It's a legislative required aspect that must be, so we make the best of it. Gives people something to do. Okay, 2 minutes, 4 seconds. Let's get down and do it. Bye now.
Here. Angelina Price.
Here. Next, we'll have the adoption of the agenda of the regular board meeting of Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. May I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular board meeting of Tuesday, February 9th, 2016?
I motion.
I have a first by Donna Friedman.
I second.
I have a second by Lynn Evenkamp. Discussion?
Yes, there are some changes to the agenda that I'd like for the board and the public to note, please. So one item under section 8, discussion action, the item number or letter B as in boy, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee member appointment. Staff is pulling that item from the agenda this evening. And the other is under consent, section 10, consent for the Nogales High School girls wrestling team traveling to CIF championships. The attachment that was added was for the boys. So there's the gender issue. So it should be the boys wrestling team. Well, now I have to correct myself again. It's the girls wrestling team that's going in, so the attachment needs to be corrected and will be done. There is a copy of it in front of you to be able to see that attachment. And I believe Ms. Evenkamp has a requested item to pull.
Yes, number 10B, resolution number SO 1516:06, Career Technical Education Month.
Any other? Okay. May I get an amended motion?
I move to amend.
I have a move to amend by Donna Friedman.
I second.
A second by Lynn Evenkamp. All in favor of adoption of the Tuesday, February 9, 2016 regular board meeting agenda with the following corrections and modifications as noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll go into reports, and we will have a staff report on LCAP mid-year progress. Dr. Mitchell?
Perfect, thank you very much. So thank you for starting our meeting earlier today. The purpose for that is to be able to have time for the board to hear our mid-year report on LCAP goals 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so Teresa Healy, our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, will be providing that report for us.
Good evening, everyone. I understand you have the PowerPoint for you on paper, so that will be handy to follow along. Thank you for this opportunity to have extended time to talk with you about what we're doing with the LCAP. Since it's such a driver of what we do for our district, it's important that we spend time with it, and to be rushed at a regular board time, it's nice to have the extra time to share information with you. So tonight we are covering goals 3 through 6, and it's our mid-year update. So it's not intended to be we checked off the box and completed it for the year, but it is to give you a snapshot of the work that we have done through the year. And I want to thank the Ed Services team, most of whom are sitting out in the audience, for all the work that they've done. This is our work in working on the LCAP actions, but actually sitting down and pulling it together and saying what have we done and let's do those checkpoints. We pulled a lot of data together, and it's good for us to do, but it's nice to be able to share it with you as well. So the first piece of information that we need to share is that there are state and federal initiatives that we're still obligated to work on with our students and our staff. And so the first, of course, is the Common Core state standards as we continue that progress towards switching over to them, adding in the next generation science standards and our English language development standards. So really entwining those into our classrooms and making those shifts in what we teach and how we teach to students. You'll also see up there about our 21st century framework that guides a lot of that work of how we present, how we expect kids to show us that they know what they know. It's assessed with our Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium assessments, but also you'll start to see the NCSC, which will be an alternative assessment for our most of your special ed students, which we don't want given yet, but it will be, it's in the works. And then driven by our LCAP fund dollars. So all of this ties together into our work that we're doing as a district. A few new pieces for us this school year. The first is our CCGI, or California College Guidance Initiative work. We have partnered with the organization, it's a statewide organization, to assist our students in becoming college ready and career ready. And so there are assessments in the system. There are places for students to keep track of their data. There are career assessments as well as aptitude assessments. There are places for us to monitor, so the counselors are using this as a tool to monitor our kids and to make sure that we're providing them with the service they need so that they can become college ready and are aware of that. So there are lessons that are attached to it. Kids can log in on their own. They can log in as part of the class or part of the counseling session. And our counselors are beginning to work through this school year and working with our partners. Additionally, we've begun our work with PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention and Support System. And we have a first cohort of 8 schools that are doing year 1 work. Most of year 1 work is planning and organizing and getting your system in place. So you're starting to see some of the actions on campus, but as a planning year, there's really no expectations yet that you've seen that. But, you know, we're Rowland and we're go-getters, so you are seeing that at our school. Our next piece, and this is a brand new piece for most of us, is a Future Ready, as we start to really look at how we incorporate technology into our instructional program, having a strategic plan for us to do so, so that it's not just technology as an addition, but it's how does that help us to improve our instruction for students. And so we'll begin that work in the spring to guide that work. Just a reminder that as we look at the LCAP, that we are obligated to meet the 8 state priorities. So if you start at the top of that lovely gray box and we look at our basic requirements for kids, that we expect there to be a teacher in the classroom, we expect that the lights are on, you know, those really basic things. And as we work our way around the wheel, we get to the number 8, which is the other student outcomes. And as a district, we've been very clear in listening to our community, listening to our constituents and stakeholders, sharing with us what they thought was important beyond this. Now, they were very vocal about all the other parts as well, and we did take that into account, but especially into our other student outcomes. So you see things like our music program, our extracurricular programs, some of those pieces in our LCAP are very much driven by the local district and our families that feel strongly about that. Another reminder about our timeline. So last month we shared an overview of the process and what it looks like, what the LCAP is. Tonight we're sharing with you about goals 3 through 6, and in March we'll share with you about goals 1 and 2. And goals 1 and 2 are very meaty. There's a lot of student data, and that's part of why we flipped it, because we're in the middle of doing some of our mid-year assessments and second round assessments, and so we wanted to be able to share as much of that student data with you as possible, so we did flip it. And then in May, you'll see our draft and review process, and then in June, you'll actually see the new LCAP. So as we go into the goals themselves, just a reminder of each one, and I think the idea of adding pictures to our presentation, it tells so much of our story. So there are many pictures throughout our presentation, and that's purposeful because I think it helps you all to visualize what's going on in our classrooms with our kids. So the first piece is about communication and collaboration, and we're committed to a culture of open and collaboration, open, transparent communication. We want to be timely. We heard that from the community, that we weren't always timely, that we weren't always complete in information, that we want to make sure that we were engaging our parents and community, we were informing them, we were educating them. And so we heard lots of pieces about that, about parent education, about how we communicate, what we communicate, and that was a lot of the feedback that we had gotten from our stakeholders. And so our first action is about parent leadership and education opportunities. So as we work through, we just had our FPN visit, which will come up later in the meeting. But part of that is our parent education piece. So we're obligated under Title I to do parent education. But we felt that we needed to beef that up and to get more communication between our parents and parent groups and the district, but then also providing them with education opportunities to be better parents, more supportive of their students. So first we have some parent leadership opportunities. So things like our superintendent's parent advisory council, our school site councils, our English learner advisory council. The school site council and English learner advisory council are required groups for us because we accept Title I money and Title III money. We are required to have those groups. But we feel like we really beefed up what we've done with them by providing not only information about requirements, but also additional extended information about what's going on at schools and sites with best practices, but also providing parent education that we've then given them the tools to go back and educate their constituent groups with. The Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council is a very eclectic group. It brings together groups from our representatives from school site councils, PTAs, and our ELACs. And the agenda is very much driven by their discussion questions, but also about things that we want to make sure that we share with parents and that they can get the word spread around for us. So we've done a lot of input and back and forth communication with that group. Additionally, we provided parent training opportunities, so education opportunities for our parents. Many of these are at the district, but they're also at the sites. So our sites are doing the work as well. So some sites do it differently depending upon their community and what their needs are. But we've seen things, or we've provided pieces such as college readiness with A2G or AVID programs. We've had a parent tech night, and in fact on March 10th we have another parent tech night coming up. We have special education training for our parents so that they're more aware of opportunities for their students and supports. Parent Involvement Academy, a very large piece that we do with neighboring districts so that we can educate, it seems like hundreds of our parents in various topics, and it's a conference style piece so parents can pick what their needs are. We've had mind growers come in, we've done pieces on Common Core state standards, the smarter balance assessments, and GATE family parent nights. So again, looking at pictures, we see the DLAC group on our top left. They're very busy at work. You can see that it's not a meeting where we just sort of say, here's your paper, here's the handout, we read it to you, and then go on. But it's a very interactive group, and you can see that by the fact that they're sitting the way they are and that they're very engaged together. In the top right, you see our parent tech night. So those are parents that are using the iPads, and they're going to finding QR codes and getting information. And so that was a new technology for many of our parents at the training. And then down below, you see some of our parent involvement. Those are the Nogales band boosters, and they're being interviewed about their support for the Macy State Parade and their band students participating in that. So again, school site options, district options for us to support our kids.
Would you prefer me ask questions as you're going?
Whichever way you would like to go.
Okay. I have a question.
Okay. Can we go back then to another slide or not?
Just on this one. That's fine, where you're at. How are we measuring or obtaining feedback or measuring success of these groups? How do we know that we're being effective and we're meeting our goals?
So at the end of any parent training, we have a feedback form or an evaluation form that we look at and monitor. As part of like our superintendent's council or DLAC, that is an input group, and so we feel like we get information from them. The school site councils, again, those are a feedback group for us. The school sites, it's up to the sites to get information back about that, and I believe most of them do some sort of a evaluation or at least a feedback loop at the end of the sessions.
Just
And it'd be funny if I call on you.
some requests. Some of the parents state that they don't understand all the acronyms. And I know we've even gotten used to like A2G and AVID, but I think as we go along, if those could be explained everywhere by anybody going out into the community or wherever, it would help people understand what this program's for.
And I think we use acronyms so much, it takes us a while to remember what the words are.
question for Particial.
Yes.
And you have superintendent's parent advisory council.
I do have
That you do that. How do you select the parents and how often do you meet and what subject you talk about?
Sure, so
What is the outcome and is anything that you can say for you can give advice from?
I sure can. So the Superintendent Parent Council meets at least 3 times a year, and the parents on there are selected at the school site by the school site, and they are asked to have at least 1 parent representative. Most have 2, and some have up to 4 or 5, depending on the size of the school. And so during our meetings, the first meeting of the year, that I have with them, I generally do a district overview, because some of the parents are new to the council. And so last year as well as this year in the fall, I do an overview of the district, introduction of programs, look at a calendar of where parents can be involved within our community and our schools and so forth. And then we also open it up to the parents. They set the future agendas. So they share with me what they would like to know and learn about and so forth. So for this year's parent council, so it changes every year because depending on what the group of parents are interested in. So this year, they were interested in participating in the LCAP process. They also wanted to know about student nutrition and our food services. And so we just did have a meeting last week. And those were the 2 topics that were on that agenda. So Teresa came and presented with many of the people from the Ed Services team and presented about the LCAP, provided them information, and we received feedback from them. So they were out of their seats talking. It wasn't a sit and we lectured to them. But they were in small groups, and we have interpreters there for translation services. And so they're able to speak in the language that they are most comfortable with. And so they provide us feedback on the current program and suggestions for moving forward. And then Maria Davila, our Director of Nutrition Services, came and spoke with them about the nutrition program and got feedback from them on what ways that we can improve our service to students and the meal and food choices and things like that. They provided us with some really good suggestions, such as the presentation on the plate and how it looks, rather than, slopping a piece of pizza on there. What does the presentation look like? And Maria was able to share with them the many requirements that have to happen in school lunches and school meals. The next meeting that we have scheduled in May, they are interested in talking about school safety. So that is on the agenda, and looking at our facilities, our district facilities and so forth. So I'm not taking them on a tour.
This time, I've seen you put it on your agenda, your calendar. The next time, remind us, and it's okay for us to tell you.
Those dates are set in the fall. They're already set, so I'll add that. I'll provide those dates to the board. Sure. They're a very vocal group. They're not a quiet, demure group. They're very vocal and participatory, which is what I want. The meeting is for them. It's not my meeting, it's their meeting with me. It's not my meeting with them. So they set the agendas.
It's okay for us, for members to sit there.
Sure.
I wanted to ask about the school site councils. How is that working? Like, do the parents, how do they get their name on the ballot? Do they vote at back to school night or when? And is it uniform throughout the district?
So each school site council runs their own school site council as appropriate. And so the principal, just knowing their culture a little bit, sometimes it works to vote at back to school night, sometimes it works to vote in a different way, like get nominations at back to school night. If they have a very active parent group, then they will tend to seek nominations earlier and then vote at back to school night. If they don't have a very active group and they need to solicit parents, they will solicit it back to school night and then vote later. So it depends on the culture. Somehow I'm on a couple of the elementary schools caller list, and that's okay because it's kind of fun to get the message and hear what they're doing. And some of them do weekly callers, and some do intermittent callers for events, and so it's kind of fun to hear all those. Additionally, we have our Parent Link, which is our mobile app, and that allows parents to, on their phone, so every parent, it seems like, has a cell phone now, so they can get on that app and they can get information about the district or their school events. They can log into their child's information remotely and see attendance and information. The Aries Homely Parent Portal, that's a login from their computer, so a very similar process where they can see attendance and they can see grades and they can message the teacher and do all kinds of things. And again, 2,200 parent accounts, so that's individual parents that have logged into there. As a parent, I can log into either Parent Link or Aries and I can get very similar information, so I may not log into both. But there are parents who have logins for both. And then the district and school websites, we're getting 4 million views, so I think that's a tool that we're using to communicate with parents. We're very active on our social media, so most school sites have a Twitter or Facebook. The school sites do, the principals do, the PTAs do. So at the high schools, different groups will have them, so there's a No Gals Bands Facebook and Twitter, and each of the sports, it seems like, has one. The RUSD e-news, and then the Let's Talk option so that they can communicate back with us. The other message that we heard loud and clear is that we need to provide translation services and we need to provide them more frequently and in more options. So we are doing that, and we have increased our hours of our translator in Spanish so that we can provide more services.
This number is for what month to what month?
I'm going to defer to Gina because I don't know what she
That
told
is
me.
How
for
many
this reporting
For-
period, so for the beginning of school
From
until
the-
this month.
From the beginning of school till now, so August until now.
I have a question. I was at one of the school sites, and I can't recall which, I apologize, for back to school night, and they had someone helping parents download the app. Is it possible, just weekends with open houses coming up, that every school should have a table where as parents come up that they're
Many of the school sites do that, and they did, they've done it each year, kind of hit and miss, some at back to school, some at open house. But yeah, that would be a good point to remind people, so
Yeah.
open houses are coming up again, thank you. Or a reminder of how to find your login if you've lost it. Oh,
Yeah,
I may have logged in August and not come back.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, we have about 14,000. How many families? Question: how many families? Well, the reason I ask is the home rate is of 2,000 parents account, and I'd like to know what's the percentage of the families.
We'll have to get that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to get that back.
So I would like to see how much really.
And I'm going to say that I think the secondary parents find that tool more useful because they can see the grade book for each of their students' teachers, and so they can keep up more closely with that than trying to keep track of, just one teacher. And so the grade book piece to that and the attendance by periods of the high school, that's important to parents. So I think they tend to use it more than the elementary parents because they tend to check in with the teacher face to face or through the app or through emails. Just because we don't do the grades for the elementary on the Aries in that way, they don't use the grade book in that way. So there's not as many reasons to get on, because you assume if you drop your elementary student off, they went to school. High school, you might want to check, periodically during the day. So I think that they tend to use, secondary parents tend to use it a little more. But we can check on that. So we're moving on to goal 4. And I want to thank Alex and his team for the information and sharing the back of his photos as well. So fiscal responsibility and facilities. Our goal is about responsibly managing and allocating our fiscal resources to maximize our students' educational experiences and making sure that we're maintaining district solvency within that. And then on the facility side, developing our options, plans, and agreements to provide adequate, safe, and clean facilities, both short-term and long-term basis, so we support our students and effectively house them for our programmatic needs. You'll see in the photo sort of it's the almost very done Nogales High School facade, and you see students in the quad there. So in our goal 4 actions, and remember part of our goal with our LCAP is that we wanted to make sure that we were covering sort of all of our bases, and that the district goals were encompassed. And so there's not a lot of fiscal support, I guess, because we don't use a lot of S&C money for maintenance of facilities. So there's not as many actions in here as what goes on in the districts, because many of our construction pieces and all that are actually out of bond money or other funds. And so the actions are here, but they're not the complete scope of what is done. So I'm reporting on the part that's covered as actions in our LCAP. I just want to be clear about that. You got a very complete report from Stuart, I believe it was a couple study sessions ago, where he shared much more about the facilities plans and what was going on. So I just wanted to share that part, that I'm going to give you a very small snapshot, because that's what's in our LCAP, is a small snapshot as well. So there are district-wide actions. We've had the opportunity to provide some staff training to our maintenance and operations folks, update their skills and give them support. We've updated their equipment, so again, some of that training was about their equipment. We've done inspections to make sure that our campuses are clean and safe for our students. District-wide, we've done kindergarten modernizations at most of our schools, and they're done, they're in process, or getting ready to be in process. Additionally, we've updated the Killian Computer Lab, Telus' playground equipment, the Giano quad replacement. We've checked on fields and trimmed a lot of trees, getting ready for El Nino. We've checked roofs. We've done some work on many of our breezeways, and the rain gutters and some fencing. So there's lots of projects that go on across the district that are those smaller pieces that we don't tend to report on, but there's been lots and lots of work. And the action was very much about keeping up with maintenance orders and making our schools attractive and safe for our kids. And you can see that with that long list of work when you think about how many rain gutters they've looked at and trees they've trimmed and all of that, there's been lots of work that's been done. So we're well on our way to meeting that goal. The second part is about updating technology to support our 21st century teaching and learning. And again, you have an extensive report from Phil George a few meetings ago where he talked about a lot of infrastructure work, both in the big district piece, but then also from the street to the network, but then also from the network into our schools. He talked about the connections in our classrooms. So lots of those updates. So we've increased our LAN, the local area network, that's our school to school within the school systems, taking it up to a 1 gigabyte infrastructure. That's very important because as we add devices and we expect the kids to do very robust things on those devices, that bandwidth is very, very important. We've increased the Wi-Fi access points, so we've not only added access points, but we've also replaced some of the older ones so that they can keep up with the traffic. As we've increased the network, we've had to also increase the capacity of those Wi-Fi access points. Providing digital literacy, we're working with Brandy Miller, a technology coach, and she's worked on some lessons for our students so that they're digitally safe, that they understand how to use technology, what its purpose is, and to really think about their online behavior and how that follows them around. And then increasing our mobile devices for students. I think Phil was fairly modest when he was talking about the work that they had done. But they have installed, imaged, gotten out of the box, put it all together, dispatched it out to the school sites, over 1,100 devices. And I think that's quite a stupendous number when you think about the number of staff that he has. So there's been quite a bit of work done in our technology department. Please. I was going to go to keep pictures, but you can.
As far as maintenance and when the light is out in the classroom, what is the procedure and how long does it take to get fixed?
So that first step with that would be to let your custodian know, and so if it were just a regular classroom light, they would be responsible for replacing that. So there's a process at each school site about letting your custodian know. If it's something beyond, like if it were a hallway light that's too high for them to access or something like that, then a work order would go in, and then it goes into the system, and then the person assigned to that work, who assigns the work orders for something like that? Is that Stuart? Stuart would assign that work order to the appropriate personnel, and then they would go into it. It would depend on the workload of that individual person. So if we have lots of lights out, and it might take a little bit of time. If there's no lights out, then that person, they might get it really quickly. It also depends on sometimes on waiting for parts or.
I also want to have Alex share a little bit about that because Alex has been working very diligently. We've had a backlog of some of our work orders, and so Alex has been working with staff to put a system in place to clear out our dated work orders that are in the system but had already been completed but not cleared out of the system, as well as streamlining how they get addressed to the sites.
I want to start with the streamlining. It's important to have good customer service, and we would hope that a work order wouldn't have to be put in for a light like that. So our custodial staff would be reviewing the classroom, the walkthrough of the clean classroom. If they would see a ceiling tile to replace or a light, they would replace it before this process of doing a work order would go in. And all this process would be quicker just to replace it. But to do that also, we're also working with our custodial staff to know what type of equipment they need to have. So we're stocking in our warehouse actually lights and ceiling tiles so they can have it immediately, so we can have it and replace it. Along with the work order, we just started meeting with all the supervisors So the supervisors who work under Stewart know, so that we have interaction with them to say how the work orders are going, what the flow is, what assistance they need, and actually cross-referencing a facility, district facility, and our bond facility needs, where there's an overlap, where we actually have purchasing in the middle, so that they can also help and assist to make sure these bigger work orders are addressed in a timely fashion.
So you can see the photos, some Nogales High School revitalization. The picture on the left, it's a very interesting shot, but it's during the construction. And that's actually part of that facade that you see that says Nogales. That's the backside of that. You see the students in the quad. They're very happy to be there. They love their new facility, and then down below you see them in their classrooms. And then you see some of the technology devices in our classrooms. So the upper left, you see kids working on an iPad mini in their primary classroom. You see on the bottom right, some kids individually working on their iPads in a classroom. It's a middle grade classroom. And then the other two photos are of the computer labs that have been installed, and so you see kids working on them. I believe the ones on the top right are actually taking an assessment. But they're used for assessment, they're used for instruction, so that's an opportunity for technology. So goal number 5 is about student safety and wellness. So looking at our plans, our programs, our procedures, that we're making sure that the health and academic and personal support and safety of our students and staff is important for us. Our focus areas for this are professional development plans, creating a supportive school environment, providing additional counselors, health services, and support for our at-risk students. Those are the messages that we heard very loud and clear from our community that they wanted support with. And we know that if our kids are healthy and they're safe, then they're going to learn much better. And so as we look at professional development for staff, we have the PBIS program that I described earlier, but again, I hesitate to call it a program because it's really a cultural shift, but it's a process that schools go through to create that cultural shift, and that's what the PBIS is. It creates an environment that is safe for kids. We teach kids expected behaviors, we follow through with those expected behaviors, we reward them for the expected behaviors, and we create that culture shift that's what we do at our school about being either safe, respectful, kind, all of those kinds of things we expect us to be as adults. And so in order to have the training be the most effective, we've divided the schools into cohorts, and just from a training perspective, like a room. And so our first 8 schools are in process of doing that, and they've met twice as a school team. In between time, the expectation is they're going back to their site, and they are working with their site team, their whole entire staff, to create this process and this culture, and we bring it back, report on it, go to the next step. And so we're getting ready for another training in early March for our 3rd day with them. Additionally, the administrators, and then there's a teacher identified as the site coach for PBIS, they get additional training. So we started the year, they had an introduction day, and then they will have another day in the spring as well. And so as we look through the PBIS, addressing our student resource supportive environment, that has been the biggest part of our work of creating that supportive piece, because as you go through the process, you identify the expectations and you support that, but if kids need additional support, you go into what would be tier 2 or tier 3, much like an RTI instructional model or a response to intervention, response to intervention model with academics. If students need additional support, so maybe they don't get quite why skipping isn't walking, and so we need to do some support with that. But if it's a much more severe behavior, then you actually go into tier 3, and that would be some high-level support for kids. But because you've done such a good job on tier 1, that school-wide piece, it really helps you target those most needy students and give them targeted support, as opposed to not doing a very good job with everybody and not giving good support to those most needy kids. So as part of that work, I'm sorry.
Can I ask one question? About the professional development. In the LCAP, when we do the professional development, are we going to let the teachers have time to work on it like they did in the winter break? Whatever they learn, be able to apply, have the time to work with their colleagues and stuff too.
Yes, so what we've done with the PBIS teams, for example, is that we have given the sites additional funds so that they can pay their team, each site team. So at an elementary school, it'll be the principal, the teacher, coach, an upper grade teacher, and a lower grade teacher. At the secondary schools, we've expanded because our staff is bigger, so we include a counselor. We include typically 4 teachers, so either one from each core content area, or for example, Giano, they're taking one from each of their smaller learning communities because that's how they operate and do their discipline. And so that team has had additional time to work on their plan together. So we are giving them that time. So part of that work that they've had time to do, these are their behavioral statements of purpose. So as you look at them, each of them, they're similar, but they're not exact. And that's about their culture at their school, about what they value, what they think is important, and how they expect their students to behave, but it's bigger than that. It's about what they believe as people that we do. And so I'll give you a second to read a few of those because I think they're pretty powerful.
Are they posted in the classrooms?
They will be. They're still in process. So what happens with this is they have, at our last training sessions, the first training session, they started this work to think about what that would look like, and they began to work with their staff. They came back to this last training and refined it with the group to make sure that it met sort of the requirements of a good behavioral statement. And they will then go into creating sort of their rules, which should be 3 rules that should be stated positively. And so when they unveil that whole piece, that will be a part of it. But at this point, they're not quite ready to unveil because it may change a bit as they work through the rest of the process. So soon they shall be unveiled in every classroom and on every flat surface we can find. Next, you see the number of unduplicated suspensions, and this is a required metric in the LCAP. As we said, there were these state priorities that we had to do with that certain metrics that we were required to report on. Next month, when I report on goals 1 and 2 in those serious behaviors. I just would like to point out that the number for 15-16 is obviously just first semester, so it is half of the school years compared to the other numbers. So we expect that it probably will level off for this year as compared to last year.
I think I asked this question quite a while ago when we had a report from someone else on staff, but do you feel that this steady decrease in numbers is a result of not being as tough on as we used to be, or is it actually improving?
I believe it's that we are more clear about meeting our expectations at our school sites. And if you look at some of the very specific schools, which I didn't go right through tonight, but if we were to look at some of the schools and what we know has occurred in the culture on their campus, that has resulted in most of those reductions. That because the culture is a more positive, supportive place for kids, we're being very clear about expectations for kids. We're setting up structures that don't allow kids to sort of run amok. That's a big word, but slightly amok. I think that's why we see the reduction in suspensions.
So do the teachers feel like the discipline is good at each of the schools and principals are carrying through when they do a referral?
Would I say that 100% of the teachers will get that? No.
No.
Would I say more of them? Yes.
Because I'm seeing a decline, I'm wondering if all the referrals are really acted upon.
The referrals are acted upon, so our administrators know that that's an expectation that they act upon and they're supporting their teachers in the classroom. But to answer your original question, I think as you talk with teachers, there is still some frustration that exists. Sorry. And some of that is teachers, we are working with teachers to make sure that they understand and their own classroom and the control that they have within their classroom and not advocating that authority to an administrator. So there are times, we know that there are times that a student needs to leave the classroom because the teacher needs to continue the instruction. And our administrators know that and support teachers in that. But to say, do we have a fine, well-oiled machine when it comes to student discipline? No, it is definitely a work in progress.
Also, I wanted to ask, why don't we have the regular suspensions rather than the unduplicated? So if the student was suspended 5 times, that means that number would be a lot higher.
So we are required to report the unduplicated suspension, so this is the required metric that we have. It is the metric in our LCAP. We do not have the total number of suspensions. That wasn't something that we put in as a metric in our LCAP.
Is that something we could do?
We could put in certainly, but we hadn't done that, so that's why we have this one.
Having that unduplicated number also allows us to see in terms of students that are looking at both, and I know Mari's here, and we do look at both of those numbers, because when you have duplicate suspensions for a single student, That's a different kind of an issue that needs to perhaps be addressed in a different kind of a way as well. So how many students in our district have been suspended at least one time? That's what this information helps us with. The other information helps us understand the frequent flyers and how do we address those students who have repetitive issues with student discipline, because they're addressed differently.
And do we have many that are suspended several times?
I don't have that data off the top of my head, but if it's an interest of the board, we can get that to you.
I'd be interested to know, because these numbers might be a lot higher than.
I believe there was a suspension report that was provided to you last week. I had that.
And it wasn't the unduplicated.
Correct.
All right, moving on, another action that we had felt very strongly about was supporting our student needs through our school counselors. So as you recall, we did add more counselors. We lowered the student to counselor ratio, both at our high schools and at our middle schools. And so now we're really working with that staff to improve service to kids and be more supportive of our kids. And so we've had our director of secondary ed have monthly meetings with them to focus on equity and access, so making sure that kids' needs are being met. We're ensuring that all of our kids have access to the A to G, the requirements for UC and Cal State, in order to be college ready, making sure they know what they are, how to access them, what courses that would look like, how to support them, how to get support if they need it, and using the CCGI process is a very good tool for that. Ensuring that all students have post-secondary options, so looking at their 4- and 6-year plans to say, what do I intend to do in high school, what do I intend to do after high school, how am I going to get there? And another piece is looking at common counseling and intervention codes so that we're speaking the same language and we can pull the data and say, this is how many kids we're serving in this way, in that capacity, students who have this need or that need. And so we can really look at our data and pinpoint our counseling services and direct that much better. Additionally, so as we've transitioned into CCGI as a tool, providing them with monthly training. So we've rolled it out on a small scale this year, and it will ramp up to quite a few more students in this next school year.
Have we considered having a counselor follow the same student throughout the high school years,
Yes,
rather than them changing every week?
that's been part of our conversation of either having them as grade levels that, loop up with the students or pulling onto a alphabet of students that I own for all of their career there. Yes, we've had that conversation. And then you can see our fabulous counselors at work. This was a collaborative group that got together during our January PD to do some work together, and they're very jolly. They actually posed for the photo, but that's because I couldn't see them in the camera or they were in real action. But it was a very productive time with them, and just like it was with all of our teachers, the counselors found that time very beneficial to get some of their pieces together. You can see that there's counselors from all of the different schools, and so really creating that common focus for kids and their work. So I think that was an important piece for us. Another part of Goal 5 has to do with supporting students in a health atmosphere. So we're a part of a wellness committee. We get Los Angeles County Office of Education and they co-support with that. So looking at how we can support kids for wellness and all kinds of options and resources in the community. Looking at our nutrition services, creating options for kids that are healthy, providing more fruits and vegetables, providing professional development to teachers and then also to students to give them lessons on best nutrition. And then our McKinney Grant Award, there are actions that are in there that support our homeless students. We supplement that with some district funds, so the work that we do for our homeless students. But that's an important piece of our work because we have many homeless students that don't seem like they're homeless, but we do serve quite a large population. Providing additional support, staff support to for our students, so we supplemented the FRC budget with expanding their services with MEs, with spirit counseling, Zone 78, an elementary school counselor. They provide supports for students in different ways, and so each of those groups has a different modality of reaching out to kids and supporting them, and our schools access those services very well for kids. And then additionally, the FRC supports our morning break clubs where parents have an opportunity to come together, get some education, have some collaboration, and some opportunity to work together.
If students can't afford glasses and they fail the vision test, do we have a program that the parents can get free glasses somewhere?
We have supports for all kinds of things like that, so they're usually community services, so we are very dependent on those. But our FRC does a great job of finding those resources for our kids. So glasses, shoes, all kinds of things.
How do we identify the homeless
They are self-identified, so when we register the students, they're required to fill out a form about who and where they live with. And so a homeless student can be identified as what's called doubling up, so like two families might live together, or your son or daughter might come back and live with you as a family because they have no other options, not because it's a choice, but because there's just no other resource. So that would be considered homeless. So that's part of the questionnaire that they fill out when they enroll. And so it's kind of dependent on them self-identifying. But we do ask the questions appropriately, because most people think that homeless is a guy with a shopping cart on the street, and that is the definition of homeless, but it's much broader than that. Okay, moving on to goal number 6. And there's a fabulous group of people having fun at a barbecue during our January professional development. In the pouring rain, we are trying to stay dry, but we're feeding very nutritious food, I'm going to point out, to our staff. Okay, that's like the bad shot, but we were feeding them very nutritious food, and we were serving them, and that's part of leadership. But actually, in exemplary school district, strong leadership at all levels of our organization. We're committed to provide a world-class education experience, and in order to improve our student achievement and promote collaboration, we need the leadership to do that. And so, in some ways, I don't know that you always think of this as leadership, but number one, it was fun. But it is that piece of leadership of being willing to go that extra mile and be supportive of staff and students. And so I think that's a great example of what we're doing. So in our goal, the first one was about providing professional development, and our first prong of that was the district leadership team and our principal leadership development meetings. We have opportunities to come together as the district leadership and then also just as principals with our ed services team in order to build instructional leadership capacity. We do school site visits and we look at best practices. We come together as PLCs and we look at best practices. We watch lessons, we do lesson studies on video, all of us coming into a classroom together. We'll do a lesson study. We look at data together. We look at lesson designs. And so we have that opportunity to grow as instructional leaders. As we recognize good instruction, we support good instruction, and we do good instruction. And that has been very valuable to our principals, especially as we transition to Common Core and we look at different strategies and expectations in our classrooms. And so that part has been a big learning for our principals, and then also our leadership team as we do it in a bigger focus area. And we also provide coaching support for our principals, administrators, and our teachers. The teacher coaches are in classrooms. They're supported with one-on-one lessons, with co-planning and co-teaching. They are sharing strategies and providing instruction with that. All kinds of different ways, whatever will help the teacher improve their practice in the classroom. Additionally, our principals have a coach as well, and they will walk classrooms with them. They will converse about the leadership on their campus. They'll converse about practices. And all of that is so that we can support them as they become reflective on their practice. So if our principals are being reflective on their practice, we're asking teachers to do that same. We're all going to grow together. I think that's a very valuable strategy, and the research supports that. Professional learning community training, we've had 8 schools that have gone through this process together, and it provides them with the tools and the strategies so that they can collaboratively plan for good instruction and reflect on their student learning. So looking at common assessments, looking at agreed upon curriculum, instruction, how do we best serve our kids with best practices for all? And so then creating that time, so many of the PLC schools use their early outs or late starts to do that work together, meeting in different configurations, whether it's grade levels, whether it's in common subject areas, whether it's, for example, at Gianna with their small learning community, looking at student data. So various configurations of how that professional learning community PLC group comes together. Classified training opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, we have opportunities for our maintenance and operations staff to have some training. Joan over in our personnel commission has done some brown bag events for people. But additionally, we've had our January PD training. I'm going to show you some pictures of that because I think that was a wonderful event. And additionally, we are beginning soon our classified leadership academy to grow that capacity within our own ranks. And then in EdTech leadership, we worked on our community of practice, our COP, and growing that group and have them be reflective about their practice of being innovative. But we've also got a leadership committee that's working on the Future Ready tool, and they will begin that work very soon about really being strategic about our implementation of technology and how we use it best practices in our classrooms. And so some of our pictures. The top picture is our keynote speaker during our January classified professional development, and you can see lots of happy, rainy folks. Down at the bottom left is the fabulous tour and the bus led by Dr. Mitchell. And then on the right, you can see folks learning about technology and having that opportunity to expand in that way. The next area in Goal 6 is providing our highest quality staff for all positions. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
The district leadership team, that composed of everybody.
I'm sorry?
The district leadership team is that teachers, classified staff.
It is our management team, so it is our principals, our assistant principals, all of the district office administrators, our classified administrators, the managers. Here's the great side. Okay, we're going. Providing our highest quality staff for all positions, so enhancing the interview process was a key area that we wrote in our plan. And so we've increased our efficiency and our effectiveness of filling our positions. We've seen lots of positions coming through that you recruit folks for. Establishing relationships with local universities as we start to address our teacher shortage and our substitute shortage. Creating those partnerships with our local universities. So we've begun work with Cal Poly, Cal State, Fullerton, APU, Dominguez Hills, and most recently Brandon, to really have those relationships, and so we can in essence grow our own teachers and have them work with us to fill our vacancies. And then next, celebrating the achievement of all of our staff and students to work and to really emphasize the work that we're doing with our diverse population and the successes that we've had. So the board recognitions, I think, we've had many pictures with Angelina in them, but all of you as well. But really acknowledging, students and staff and community members as they do things that we appreciate. Tonight you have the opportunity to recognize one of our school nurses who's being recognized by an outside organization. And I think that's very important that we are being recognized as a district outside, not just within our own ranks, but that our good work is being recognized outside. School-based recognitions, as we shared about with the PBIS process, that's a big part of it, is that recognizing students who do the right thing and choose make good choices, but also recognizing the achievements of our students. And so, I know we all receive those invitations for awards assemblies and different types of recognition at the school sites, both for students and parents. And then most recently our RUSD showcase, where each of our schools had the opportunity to share their best practices and really just sort of tell us what they're about. And it's always amazing all of the things, like they can't fit it on that 6-foot table that we give them. And then they put it on the stage for a little while, but we only give them 6 minutes and they have to choose. And so there's just so much to share about our students and their achievements. And so you can see some of our recognitions up at the top left. I believe that was the group from Nogales. That was some of the band students. And then on the top right was the Santana students being recognized as far as Sport of the Year. And then down at the bottom left, we had our School to Career events, most recently in the fall. And so recognizing the student work there as they each presented. And then on the bottom right, some adult ed recognitions. And our FPM recognitions, yes, so we went out today, thank you for that reminder. We went out today, I'm sure Dr. Mitchell's going to share with you, but we had a very successful federal program monitoring visit, which is a program audit. It's not a fiscal audit, so they come out and say, hey, you spent the Title I money really great, but can we see the results for the kids? And so they're looking at programs. And so each of our school sites had what we call a clean visit. They had no findings. And as they went to classrooms to look at programs to make sure that staff was doing appropriate work, that the professional development was being successful, all of those pieces of our Title I, Title II, Title III, preschool dollars, our career tech dollars, all of those pieces, we had no findings at 5 of our schools. And so just wanted to share that. We went out recognized 2 of them today, and we'll get the rest next week. Bought them some balloons and some treats. So, but it was nice because when you have the audit, you're doing what you've always done, but you then got to sort of shine it up a little bit because you have visitors. But the other part too is that you have to document, you have to bring so much of that work into the documentation. And so really recognizing that extra effort that those staffs had to do to represent the district well, because they were representing the district instead of visiting only 2 schools, they choose to visit just a handful. Our community members. So we have opportunities with our employees, we have opportunities with our communities, and then our many, many lunches with our student groups. So I'm looking forward to that. So our LEA review and revision process. You see the very fabulous pizza, healthy and attractive pizza lunch that we are serving our children during our focus group. But you can see the intensity of not only Dr. Mitchell, because she's very intense on the conversation and taking notes, but the kids are very engaged in the discussion. And I think that's important to note that, you know, we didn't just go and feed them pizza and they smiled at us, but that they were very intent on our discussion and our questions and giving us information. And I think that's true of all of our groups. We didn't find just the one picture of kids that were engaged. There were many options, but also in our community, there was many different opportunities for them to share. And so again, just the, I'm sorry, you have a question?
Just quickly, was it just the high school students that were involved?
Last year it was the middle school and high school students. And so one of the pieces as a growth that I was going to share, but I'll share now to address the question, is we are going to include our K-8 schools because we did not just, it was a logistics issue last year, we didn't quite figure it out. So we figured it out this year, and so when we're at the K-8 schools, we're going to include some of the elementary students, and that process, figure out how to include more of the elementary schools in the conversation, but again, logistics trying to figure that out. So as we go on into our planning for the year, and just a reminder too that because we're trying to keep all of our district plans and processes focused in one thing, as we go through this LCAP process, this will also inform our LEA plan revision, which we need to do another revision. We did a small revision a few months ago that was just sort of up to date, but we need to be future focused with that plan. And so as we go through this process, we will also update our LEA plan sort of side by side. And so that just kind of be aware of that. So our LCAP meeting, so we have one coming up on February 16th. That'll be our initial meeting where we'll provide information to the council, but then we will also ask them to participate in our input gathering process, so invite them to our community meetings, our employee meetings, our student groups. And then we will come back together on April 14th to gather some of that information, and then on May 4th to actually do some more work with that. Our community, parent, student, employee groups, we have, the first one coming up is March 2nd at Rowland High School. We have an employee meeting early in the afternoon, and then we have a community meeting that evening. And then on March 10th at Giano, we have an employee meeting early and then a community meeting later. The community survey will open on March 1st. We'll go through the 25th. We will report on our annual report. That is the requirement to share with you sort of what I'm doing tonight, but the end version of that in May. At the May 10th board meeting, we'll present our draft on June 14th at the board meeting, and then we'll ask for a vote on June 20th. So that, my friends, is goal 3 through 6.
When will the community survey be available for review for the board to see it?
That will go in your Friday report.
Oh, thank you.
We're putting the final touches on it right now.
For the last page, last item for the budget, and I understand the Governor Brown proposed the large increase.
January proposal for that, that's for next year's budget.
Yes. So, but we wouldn't know exactly how much that's, how we can do this.
So the January proposal is what you're referring to, and I'll have Alex explain a little bit in terms of the budget cycle, because there's January, May, and June. So Alex, do you want to?
All of those assumptions we place in the second interim, and the second interim is a snapshot of this year and 2 years out with those assumptions. So those assumptions that the governor proposed will be included in the second interim probably presented in March to the board.
The second interim will be 1 month.
The March board meeting, that will be in commission.
Teresa, since we've increased our number of counselors and therefore decreased the student counselor ratio, how long do you think it will take to see whether that's really effective or not?
So what we put in for a metric to kind of guide that or to say is part of that intervention codes. That was that piece that the counselors did. So really aligning the work to what we do. So that's been over a year process to say what is the work of our counselors? What's the work at the high school? What's the work at the middle school? What's the work regardless of the level that you're at? And so those monthly meetings where we collaborate really define their scope of work. That's been a big part of that. So we're starting to see, we'll be pulling the data on the intervention codes and like the number of visits that we're seeing and for what and why. So it's really going to baseline probably this school year to see what those numbers are. But the other part of it is that, remember, part of the point of supplemental is increasing graduation rate, increasing their college going rate. So the data is always in arrears for graduation rate, so we'll be 2 or 3 years out before you start to see that change. Just because of the way the data is reported.
All right, do we have, oh. Okay, thank you again, Ms. Healy. It was very informative, and we appreciate you answering all of our questions. Do we have any public comments on closed session agenda items only?
No, we do not.
Then at this time, the board will adjourn to closed session at 5:10 p.m.
Okay, folks, this is 2/9 of 2016, and what we have for you here is the 4 o'clock meeting of the LCAP presentation to the Rowland Unified School District School Board. And this is a segmented one. It does not to have the full enchilada, but there's enough here to keep you going to find out what's going on. Now, the irony is that we're all victims of LCAP. Supposedly, we have educational professionals who are supposed to be competent, qualified, or qualified and competent to produce an education platform to meet the needs, present and future, for the educational process, whether it be college preparatory or in a career, depending on what you select. And they have those career pathways. Okay, and so if you, what it amounts to is they have this local control funding formula, and if you want to get the money and so forth, and the state as well as others want to see that the money's properly spent, and they want to get it says local control. Well, we want to get some input from the locals. Yes. The irony is that it has been shown that the outcome of the LCAP findings and processes are, for all intents and purposes, that which would happen without this inclusion of community participants of various sundry kind of persons who know so little about the education platform, but there's always that chance that somebody will come up with some boom that will make a huge difference. But to that point, it really doesn't matter. It's a legislative required aspect that must be, so we make the best of it. Gives people something to do. Okay, 2 minutes, 4 seconds. Let's get down and do it. Bye now.